All right, hello everyone. My name is Kevin, and I'm here with Barbara. Together, we both like to welcome you to our latest Novedge webinar series episode. For this week's webinar, we're teaming with architect Francois Verhoeven to give you a first-hand look at Maxwell Render Suite's V3 SketchUp plugin for architectural design. How well does Maxwell Render's plugin perform in an actual design workflow? Working architect François Verhoeven demonstrates the modeling and visualization process with SketchUp 2014 and Maxwell Render Suite V3. Using examples from a real-world project, see for yourself why Maxwell Render is the premier choice for architectural previews and renderings in SketchUp. For those of you who don't know, François Verhoeven is an architect working with his business partner, Dennis Fillié, in the Netherlands in their own firm, Fillie Verhoeven Architects, since 1993. Aside from the architectural firm, Fillié and Verhoeven have been providing services to architects such as engineering, architectural photography, and architectural visualization under the name 3DFV. François has also written the article, A Architect's View on Maxwell Render for CGarchitect. Today's presentation is about 40 minutes long, and afterwards we'll have a brief Q&A where François will answer any questions that you guys might have. So submit yours to us at any time into the chat window while it loads. But before we get going with today's presentation, here's an overview of what we do at Novedge. Now, the Novedge webinar series is brought to you by Novedge.com. As one of the largest online design software stores, we offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's need. For existing users of Maxwell's plugin for SketchUp, I do want to remind you guys that the new updated plugin is now compatible with SketchUp 2014. It's also free for V3 customers and is completely revamped and repackaged with some great new features. To learn more about Maxwell Render Suite V3 and its new plugin for SketchUp, you are welcome to call and speak with our specialist, Bob Thayer. You can reach him by his email address, bob@novedge.com. Barbara, I think you have a few words you'd like to say.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm here to strongly encourage you to visit the Novedge blog to get a glimpse at who is changing the world of design one step at a time. Meet the innovators, the makers, the architects, the VFX artists who work right on the edge of creativity and technology. Great interviews, great images, and great stories. Come visit us today at blog.novedge.com. And to catch up with the latest product promos and Novedge webinars, like us on Facebook. That's, by the way, where I live, and where you can always drop us a question or follow our news and everything about what happens in the software world today. Coming up next week, Modo 801 is the latest release of the Foundry's award-winning 3D animation and asset creation software. Whether you work in design, VFX, or games, Modo 801 contains features that will let you do more and faster. Modo creative specialist Greg Brown gives us a first-hand look at all the new changes in our next upcoming webinar. The presentation, of course, is free and will last about an hour, including the Q&A session, just like today. To sign up, head on over to www.novedge.com/webinar/114. Last but not least, today's webinar is being recorded live, and if you want to rewatch episode 113, as always, you can find it on our Novedge webinar series channel through Vimeo and YouTube. Don't forget to follow our webinar series channels for the latest updates. And now, guys, I'll leave it up to you. Francois, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay, so I will pass the microphone to you right about now. Here we go.
Let me see. Okay, there it is. And I'm on, I think. Thank you,
yes,
Kevin.
I can see it.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, very much for the introduction.
No worries.
And, well, I'm François Verhoeven, and I'm an architect working in Holland. And, well, I'm asked to do a little webinar today about how I use SketchUp and Maxwell Render. A little bit focused on the new version V3 and the new version of SketchUp 2014. On the left you see a building. That's where I'm broadcasting from at the moment. The company LGS provided us with their hardware and their space and internet connection. So we move on from here. This is just, I hope you guys can all see this because there might be a little bit of a lag time. But in fact this is a SketchUp image, and what is really nice about SketchUp and Maxwell is that you can use reference symbols. And you see the red blocks, those are references for images that are rendered, but not really, you know, they're not part of the geometry in SketchUp. I will go through these images pretty fast because I would love to show you actual models and renders. This we also rendered straight from SketchUp with some models from Design Connected. You see the pomegranate and the flowers, the teapot. They have never been modeled in SketchUp, but the table and the rest of the interior of this office has. But all is rendered straight from SketchUp and the Maxwell Render plugin. This is the same story really. Maybe I'm going a little bit too fast. Another interior render we were asked to do for a broker who wanted to rent out office space with a new interior, and they use it for that. This is a very different kind of approach we sometimes do in SketchUp, where we render non-realistic, non-photographic images with typical SketchUp trees, typical stuff you find from the 3D warehouse, cars, bikes, everything from there. This is an office designed by the Dutch firm Architects Combinatie. This is also not photorealistic. We do that a lot because in the process of design you don't always have the time to actually go through all the detail that the photorealistic image needs. This is a remodeling of a house. This is more or less photorealistic. The car and the magnolia tree on the right, they are never modeled in SketchUp. They are brought in by reference components. And well, that works really, really well. This is a building or a house actually that we just built. The brickwork on the elevation of the house has been photographed by me in Belgium from another house, and I just mapped it on the geometry in SketchUp and rendered it in Maxwell Render. You know, that worked really well. If you take a photo there at the site, it would practically look the same. This is a project we are working on right now by the architectural combination. Well, you know, I can say a lot about it, but I will rather move on to some other images over here. This is something we also do a lot. We model as if we were using wooden blocks just to, you know, in the first stages of a design. You don't want to bother your clients with all too much detail and materialized ideas about how the design will be looking like further in the process. So this is what we do. This is really SketchUp, sketchy lines. Years ago that was really fantastic. You could go to any client with that, but nowadays we feel that you know, looking at what the competition does, you really want to have a little bit more look and feel of what buildings look like. And what we do now, we have these kind of images in SketchUp. What we do next is we have it rendered in Maxwell Render, and then we put those two together, and you end up with an in-between between photorealistic and sketchy lines. It's really most clients just love it, and we do this a lot. It can be done very quick. Renders are made in less than an hour, and the sketchy lines are just a few minutes exported from SketchUp. So this kind of work has been, yeah, we've been doing that a lot. I will be showing you a model of this this building. It's a heat exchange station in Rotterdam. Last year, or actually it was 2 years ago, we entered a competition. 69 architects were there, and we were finalists among the first 5, and we made it to 2nd place. So that was disappointing by itself. You'd never want to be second, really, if you could have been first. But we really liked the building and the model, and it was an exceptional example of Maxwell and SketchUp come together. The client also really liked the look and feel that the building had. It was a bit too costly. This is really what I'm going to do today. Everything you see here, it's way too much for this webinar. But there are some things as an architect I would really like to show you, and those are some key features of Maxwell Render for SketchUp 2014. The SketchUp plugin has been written by Jeremy Hill, and he's really done a very, very good job for the plugin. And this plugin that joins Maxwell Render and SketchUp makes it very easy to work with. You know, we rarely have crashes or bugs or something bothering us in the workflow. So what you see here on the left, there are some key features. That's what I'm going to show you, and there are some new features in V3. I can't really go into that too deep because I don't have all that much experience with the new features, but there are new menus for object properties to generate grass geometry, sea, like water, volumetrics. And then secondly, I want to go a little bit deeper into the idea of rendering photorealistic and non-photorealistic. The first one I'm going to do is mentioned here as Office in Park. It's a design study. And I would like to show you a little bit about reference components and two-point perspective, very typical things you are going to deal with as an architect. So I'm moving out of Keynote here, and the file's already open in SketchUp.
Okay. Francois, I just want to mention that it might be good to maybe speak up a little bit so that our attendees can hear this.
Okay. Is this better?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That's good. Cool.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear this. I can talk as loud as I want in here, and nobody else is here, so there's no problem there. What I would like you to know that is I'm really an architect. Most of my work is about working with clients, going to construction sites, making hand sketches and drawings, mostly in SketchUp, and we use Vectorworks, Modo, and some other software as well. But what I like about SketchUp is just speed of modeling. But today on this webinar I will not really talk much about modeling itself. This is really about the combination with Maxwell. On the left you see a new panel. That is the plugin, the Maxwell plugin. I will click the palette for the scene manager. The scene manager is really the focal point of the plugin. There are some other controls you have to have some input for variables. You need to make your renders. If you go to plugins, you will see here the Maxwell. Well, actually, this is basically the scene manager, but less visual. And you also have some contextual menus. If you click some geometry, you can go here to Maxwell, and there you have some some different stuff you can use in combination with the plugin. You know, for instance, here is a hide from camera. That means that it will still render, but you don't really see the object itself. From GI, from global illumination, that means that you could, for instance, make architectural glass without causing too much calculations going on. Well, there's a lot to say about it. I will not go into that too much. From reflections, that speaks for itself. From Z-clip, you can make cross sections in Maxwell as well. Not the same way as you do in SketchUp, but something similar. The scene manager, that is, as I said before, the real focal point of the plugin. If you go here to the left, you can see materials, and for instance, if you click on a material here, you want to know what this is, you click it, and immediately the plugin will guide you through the proper or the appropriate materials. So if I do that here, let me see if that works. If I click it here, there, and then tap copy, maybe it will be more clear. You see here how the scene manager follows your moves as far as the materials are concerned. I will show a little bit more about that later, because you can also choose for some other materials by pressing this here. If I go to camera, that is really everything that has to do with camera settings. This is here about your window. This is about the optics, the lens optics, your aperture, your shutter speed. Shift lens, that is also an important part of the camera setting. I use this a lot as an architect and photographer. I use this the same way as others would use on the camera, a two-point perspective. If you use a two-point perspective, SketchUp users all will know that you can just move your object around so that you get a nice view. The same way you use a photographic lens, like a tilt shift lens. Actually, Maxwell is able to render it exactly like this. The only thing is that it is a little bit simulated. You know, it's if you use it in this panel over here, the shift length is a little bit more correct, and it also works together with Fire. Fire is over here. That will give you a preview of your render. I will show that later. Just to show what the scene manager is about. Here we go. This is about the environment. It is actually if you are using HDRI images to light your scene, you can like this here. It's image based. We can also change that into sky. Physical sky is actually the shadows according to your settings in SketchUp, and well, what I mostly use is image based. As you can see here, I have here an HDR file of Peter Guthrie. I will not show here exactly how I put it in here, but you can actually press this this button here, and you can choose among your files to choose an image file, an HDR file to use as a background, but also for lighting. As you can see here, illumination. I'm using the active sky. That is actually the SketchUp sky. As far as shadows are concerned, I can also change that into HDR image. That means that also now for illumination I'm using the HDR file. Here it is, output. I will just go a little bit quicker over all these different settings. I'm looking at the time. I'm afraid I will not really be able to show you some actual rendering, so I'm going a little faster here. This is the output. It's important you have your name giving, where things are stored, pack and go. That's nice. You can actually export your file with everything together, your HDR files, your reference components, etc., so that you can render files at a remote computer, or bring your files home, or well, whatever you like, wherever you like to render. Instances, that is the Maxwell way to name components. And there are some other stuff here. For instance, CPU threads. You can choose how many threads, how many cores of your computer you would like to use for renders. And here is options. Well, there are some settings here that for search path, where your materials are stored, user interface, some different settings. What I'm going to show you now to get some renders going, I'm going to press Fire here, and as you can see, it is actually processing materials, and here you can get an idea. As you can see here, it looks black. That is because I just changed the settings here for illumination. I'll go back here and make the sky the one to use. And there you see that it's almost instantly that you can see the differences even in these things. It's not just about rotating model, which I'm going to do here now. Use updating camera, and there is actually being moved around. You can see a tree here, which is a little bit strange because I don't see it over here. That's because the Fire engine was already set up before I started the webinar, but if I click this one here, it will re-export the geometry to Maxwell, and it will, you can see it here happening, exporting 3D model. It will be a matter of seconds before a model is exported, and now you will see the render without the tree. Processing materials, there it is. So how can it be? Well, the tree you saw is actually a reference tree. It's never been modeled in SketchUp. It has been modeled by Evermotion, and it's really a great feature of Maxwell Render. It's actually, where is it? Let me see. I'll have to move this one here a little bit up. Maybe I will put it here. Here you see a button here, and if I click it, there it is. It will ask me to choose a tree from a list, and actually I've chosen that one before. I will do it again. And here you see, maybe, I'm not sure if everybody can see that, but I will just click the tree in there, and I can re-render in Maxwell Fire, and there the tree will come back again. And I can actually have hundreds of trees spread over the terrain, and without slowing down SketchUp considerably. You know, it could be just the basic group or volume to represent the tree. There it is. If I move up a little bit over here, let me see here. Every leaf there is actually modeled, and well, there we go. I'll just move around there. I'm sure I'll respond to this on the screen there for you people. But, there is some screen delay, and I'm moving it around a little bit. But you can see a new image getting it. And the fire engine is actually a draft of the rendering. If I stop it over here, and then it will stop rendering. I can, with this button here, I can re-export geometry. With this one here, I can save the image, and here are some settings for the fire engine. But what most people are probably interested in is what will happen if we're actually going to use Maxwell Render, and I just did that. It's exporting at the moment. There you go. It's exporting the 3D model. Normally, you wouldn't really go and render stuff on a live webinar, but as an architect, I feel that people should actually have a look and feel what happens if you buy this program and work with SketchUp. What is actually your, the delay before you see something? What we do a lot as architects is change designs all the time. We are working on designs, and it's not as much as just pressing render and then wait a few hours and bring your image to a client. But what we do mostly is change stuff and re-render, and that can happen maybe 50 times in an afternoon. So if looking at an image, even exporting it and having a first view or an idea of what's going on takes a long time, it's pretty useless to us. I would say that Maxwell, especially looking at this here, if you see we are now about 50 seconds underway, and I can already have a good idea of what the render will start to look like. Obviously, if you want a high-res image, it will need a couple of hours extra. But am I going to wait for that? In most cases not. I will just start a new image. Maybe I will change some stuff in the model and do that again. So what are we looking here at? This is the Maxwell Render screen. If I press F, you can get a full screen image. I can move in and move out. I can pan. I can press this again. You will probably see it a little bit slower than what I see here. I will explain to you what is going on here. I can stop the render over here. I can start a render through a network if you have more computers. You want to use those computers for a single render or for several. You can see render 0%. Actually, it's much further than that, but I have set my renders to render endlessly, so that if I want a high-res image and I switch one on at night, that I don't come back the next morning and it stops after 10 minutes. Here you see sampling level. It's at 6 at the moment. Usually we go to about 20, and reasonable image are already gotten at about 10. Next sampling level, 44 or 42 seconds. Update, time passed, time left, etc. Benchmark gives you an idea of how well or how fast this render can be. You can have a very simple volume at the benchmark of 2000, or you have an extremely fast computer. The benchmark will also be much higher. I would say benchmarks of about 100 are minimum to actually be workable. On the left side you see some settings. What is very special about Maxwell, I can actually change shutter speed and sensitivity, and while rendering you will see that in about 3 seconds it will change the image. So if you have your camera settings a little bit off, you can still change that while the image is rendering. You can also change vignetting. Let me see, I've enlarged my cursor a little bit, so there it is. And you have like a little bit like a Photoshop filter, although this works a little different. You have your monitor, gamma, and your burn here. And so you can actually fine-tune an image while it's actually rendering, and that's really a great feature of Maxwell. Since these things don't have to be perfect when you set a render. I'm going to stop this one over here at sampling level 7.5. it gives me a pretty good idea what went on. So I will quit that one, go back to my model. I will switch off fire here as well, and I will, let me see how far we are. I think I'm going to start up a new model and shut down this one to show you some other features of Maxwell Render. The renders you saw just now, we normally use those already for non-photorealistic stuff, which we complement with sketchy lines and so on. I would like to show also a few things that are more photorealistic. The office interior you already saw at my keynote, but I would like to open the heat exchange station, and I will show you how multi-light works, also a rather interesting feature of Maxwell. And let me see where it is. I will go here. Let me see, there it is. And that one is it. Okay, I will just shut down this one. There it is. Okay, there we are. As you can see here, this is a model of a rather modern building. It was a design of ours for the city of Rotterdam, and there are some interesting things going on here. You see here the red block. It's actually a Citroën DS, a reference component in front of the building, and let me see to give you an idea about the complexity of the geometry here, because it looks rather simple, but I've modeled this in SketchUp. Let me see where I can do that. View hidden geometry, and there it is. You can do that better actually, but we wanted to give this building a very smooth, rounded surface, and there are some little green lights in there. Well, maybe I will do it like that. And let's see what we have here. If I switch on the fire engine, just to speed up modeling a little bit, I will switch a few things off. Let me see. Layers, I'll switch off that part, and then we will go to the scene manager. Let me see what we have for settings. Here the presets are set at custom, which means that I can set a resolution of 1200 by 800, which will go pretty fast if I export this to Maxwell. Just to give an idea of what we are doing here. Let me see. I have to. There it is. I'm going back to Maxwell here. And there it is. This won't be the most interesting view of their building. Let me see. There it is. Well, it's really a little bit off the screen. You can see here the car standing. I will go with this actually. Stop it. What I wanted to show you is how you can manipulate light during a render, and it's rather nice to see. I hope it will work. It's not also something I would rather prefer not to do on a webinar, but it's really interesting to see. Let me see here. The lights are on. I will switch on lights. There it is. Then I will go to, well, let me see, multi-lights. Intensity, that's all right. There we go. So this is all set well. And then I will go here to scene 2. And I actually needed this one. There it is. And I will also redraw my screen here. There it is. There we go. As you can see, the building is actually moved up a bit. So that is because the setting shift lens here is set at -18. So at the actual render, the building will be projected lower than what you see here. As said before, I can also use camera tools to point perspective, but you know, that has the disadvantage of fire not really working with 2-point perspective. So let me see if I press here render. Let me see what happens. If I can, oh wait, I will stop that. and I will have to switch on the lights. Actually, I'd switch them off by changing the scene. And we also don't really need the car there, so everything is set well for a multi-light show. Let me see if it works out. Yeah, it should work now. That's computing the multi-light is a feature of Maxwell Render where you can actually adjust settings for your background lighting, illumination. And what you see here, I will make sure that only the interior lights are on. The glass facade of this building is actually not clear, so it looks a little bit blurry. It's nice that you can actually move that up and a little extra back here.
Oh, Francois, I do want to mention that while you're rendering this, the audio seems to drop off a bit.
Okay, I hear it. Yeah, that's because this is a little more than the processor can handle.
Gotcha.
Let me see if I can change that. Just a moment. I'm not sure the course that's right. Let me see. Engine. Okay, yeah, I will do it again. I'll change that here. The audio, I just got a message from Kevin that the audio is actually dropping off a bit. That's because the cores of my computer are actually handling rendering, giving priority to the renders. I'll stop this, I'll do it again, and that will not take much time. I'll quit it here, and what I just did, I reduced the amount of cores that are involved in the rendering, so things will be maybe a fraction less fast render-wise, but for the audio it might be better. So there we go. Same thing as just a minute ago, and we're just waiting for the render to pop up. It's computing right now. You can see here on the
Francois, I'll let you know if
it sounds
I was going to let you know if the audio is better. Yeah, it sounds better.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
It sounds better. That's something about Maxwell in general I would like to let you guys know about, is that almost everything is fine-tunable. You know, you can get to any settings really, and even from within the plugin. Most people who are watching this webinar are probably not aware that Maxwell Render goes along in the Maxwell Render Suite with Studio, which is a standalone application for handling the geometry outside of SketchUp. I will just show that later on a little bit. But as you can see here, this building is a modern industrial building. The bigger image is what it's actually rendering, and the smaller image is a preview. So if I just switch off the lighting from the the illumination from the background or the HDR, I can actually here lower, I'm not sure if everybody can see this, lower the lights within the building or giving it more light. I can adjust shutter speed. I can also here change a little bit of the monitor settings, maybe here with the vignetting. And although I know that the image doesn't really look very refined yet at all, but we are only 1 minute and 40 seconds rendering, you can see actually that if you have a whole lighting setup and you want to be able to see what you're doing while rendering, you can still adjust color and intensity of the light, and that is really, really great. What we often do, we have an office interior, and with lots of lights in it, we send a file to the Rebus render farm, and they will send it back in an MXI format. And in that format, we can actually still adjust all the settings for lighting using multi-light. And that way we can set up a final render where everything is exactly right, knowing working with it like this. You know, you can see here that is something that may seem nice, but it's actually saving us tons of time in interior lighting situations. And well, that's a little bit about multi-light. I will stop it now because the image will get better, but it's not really. We don't need it much further than that for this webinar. So there it is. I'll quit it. And then I will switch on fire. Let me see, here it is. And there we go, updating output, processing materials. And there it is. And then I can show you a little bit better what happens if I adjust camera settings here. Before I said something about the shift lens, and look what happens here if I reduce the amount of shift. You will see the image move up. It's almost like using a technical camera in a real life situation, and that is very helpful if you have a large building and you want a wide angle view. You don't want to have all this real estate in front of your building. You can use shift lens to adjust it so that you can have a proper image. Actually, the tree here in the distance, I can switch that one off. It will make rendering a little bit faster. I will switch on the car which is there, and I will re-export the model so that we can have a little bit different viewpoint from here. There it goes, processing materials rendering, and there we go. I will move things a little bit over here. I will switch on the vessel part of the building. There we go. And I will re-export it with the added geometry. Now we're getting a pretty complex model, and I deliberately want you to see what's happening because it's all too easy to have a little volume show up, and people might think that you know, Maxwell might be fast with simple geometry, but what happens if you are an architect working somewhere where the geometry is slightly more complicated? Will it be still responsive? Well, here you can see what happens. Here in the preview Maxwell Fire window, there's a fully modeled car, and I will switch on hidden geometry. There you will see that this is actually all there, and there's lighting on. I will switch it off inside the upper part of the building. There we go. And it is really a lot of fun to be modeling, and as if you were a photographer walking around your own building before you do the actual rendering. And you can see here what's happening. I'm just moving around the screen a little bit. If I go into more detail there, you see here the palette. I haven't been talking much about that, but for instance here is the focal distance, and actually like a camera adjust your focal distance. We just did that, so it might be also in the Maxwell Fire window that you stay a little bit more in focus. Let's see, there it is. I'll move around here a little bit, and I will go to the settings. I'll put this 0. Let me see where my card is. What is very tempting in Maxwell and SketchUp is that after a while you tend to just keep on rotating your models and looking at it from all angles like a designer would, and be impressed with the images you get without really altering all that much, or finding the right you know, viewpoints for presentation. And what is really nice about the Fire engine is that it is really is responsive. As you can see, I'm not sure the screen refresh is really fast enough to see what I'm seeing here. But this is usually what happens. Okay, I will show a few other things as well. I will stop this right now here just to keep things responsive while explaining some other things. Here we go. For instance, the aluminum material that's here, I will click it, and I will go here to the material tab, and it says titanium. Apparently it isn't aluminum but titanium. Suppose this is a Maxwell material. There are differences. There are materials here, SketchUp materials, the typical ones, the colored ones that you see here. are exchanged at export to Maxwell Render by Maxwell materials. And if you want to edit those materials, you can actually. You can press here a little pencil. I will click it here. And there you go. The Maxwell material editor will pop up. And you see a much more complicated editable material than you would ever be able to do in SketchUp. What is really nice is that you can edit these materials while you are modeling in SketchUp. And as you can see here, for I call this material aluminum hub 200, but it's the material itself consists of several layers that describe the material itself. I can update here the material. I can use an opacity mask. And you can import all sorts of mappings from the web or from resource sites done by Maxwell. If I say save, where it is, save Maxwell, and I can quit it again, you will see here, normally there will be a preview. There it is. And that's actually the material that I've just edited. It's part of the building. For instance, I'm not really sure if that will work now, but I can try to base material. I can say here I want it red, like that. Okay, I can update it. There it is, a little bit reddish. I can save. I quit the material. This will change here too after a little while, if everything works out right. Well, maybe it won't update so quick. Let me see if the material here will update. Yes, there it is. You see it, the preview image, the building now is had a little bit of a reddish metallic surface. And it's really handy like this. Sometimes I even totally forget about the material panel that SketchUp provides. And I'm using the material panel in the scene manager. And the nice thing is you can just select materials the same way as you do in SketchUp, like this here, or for instance the glass material, glass element, there it is. It's a little bit slow here in updating the view, but that must have something to do with the audio taking some processing powers. Anyhow, this is a Maxwell material. If I click here, you can actually also have settings that are that you can set locally in SketchUp, like roughness for the amount of shyness. You can change the character into different kinds of materials. It has really a lot of options to work with materials, and so. Since texturing a model is equally important as modeling itself for the final image, it's really well done that you can use the scene manager to easily adjust and fine-tune the materials while you are designing your building. So what have we done so far? We have seen a little bit of how the material panel works, how you can change from an MXM material, like a Maxwell material, to a locally preset material, for instance, a very shiny material. And as you can see, the Maxwell Fire is just trying to keep up with my very impulsive changes here in the settings. Well, we've seen a little bit of the camera settings, the shift lens, up and down, you know, the focus. You can choose whether you want it to be done manual, and use the palette over here with the focal distance, or a spot focus automatically done, or an average focus. You have your resolution. This is actually the scene you have set up in SketchUp. We haven't really talked much about the environment, but you will see that it's really easy to use HDR files, as well as just the typical SketchUp shadows. If I do it here, you can see here. Now it's just the sun, And the shadows are also much stronger and harder than what you get out of an average HDR file. I'll rotate my model a little bit. You can see here, if I find that the lighting is too harsh, I can actually go to the camera and change the exposure value, which automatically chooses from a certain stop of certain aperture. So if I want a wider aperture, it automatically chooses shutter speed. If I want to raise the bar here a little bit for shift, you see the image go down like that. I move out. Oh, there it is. For instance, we go backwards a little bit. So this is just an image which gets its shadow from the sun. You see the way I changed the aluminum from grayish to red, which doesn't look all that nice now, but for the demonstration it's fine, so like this. Well, in a very quick manner, I try to explain a little bit about the environment. Here are all sorts of settings for the sun. Usually the way Maxwell works is that all these settings are already there. So don't worry about things being too complicated. Things are set the way the average user would like to use it. So actually all these settings, I've never put them in there myself. But if you want to change the settings, you can. But if you are a beginner, you don't have to worry that you'd be stuck into all sorts of difficulties. This, the output panel, we also touched lightly for what you can do. Pack and go here, you can switch it to yes to export a file with all the texture mappings, the reference symbols, the HDR files, all into one package in one folder. It's very handy to bring your files home and do some extra rendering at a different location. There are a few things I would really like to show, but I am looking at the time and I'm not really sure if I can make it. I'm going to quit this file to show a few features of the V3 version. So I'm not going to save that one, and here we are, the grass one. Here it is. I don't hear Kevin talking to me for letting me know that time is up. So here we are, and I'm going to show you how the grass works. This panel here, the tool palette here, it shows here some grass. And what I've done here, I will show it to you. I've made a little box, there it is. And I click it here. This is a grouped surface. And if I click here on the grass button, you will see here that I can enable it or not to let Maxwell, the plugin, generate actual grass. And that's really a really nice feature. I'm just showing it to you on a very small surface. You can imagine if you have a very large surface, it will require a lot of RAM of your system to model all that at export and to render it. Oh, sorry. You can actually set the texture for the ground plane, and you can actually set the material for the generated grass. Let's see what happens here. If I say go, I will export it, and the processing done, rendering. There it is. We have an HDR as background. The let me see. I will just. The box where the grass is supposed to grow into is made of Corten steel. And I will move it around a little bit, and you see the grass there just generated at export by the plugin. If we just click it again, and let's change something here to see what happens. There are about 1,500 blades per square meter, so maybe I better leave that now. And the length is here 0.5 meter. So imagine that to be, 1 meter. Let's see what happens here. I will have to export the model, and then we will just have a look at what kind of grass will come up. There it is, slightly larger. And well, some people have really made very nice texture to have different types of grass grown, sorts of different colors, shorter grass and longer grass, of light green and dark green. You can of course mix these settings for different paints in SketchUp. So you can make it look really very realistic. If I just show a little bit more about the plugin here, let me see. You can actually set the plugin to generate grass in a higher density in the foreground than in the background. You can change here the variation, the way the grass is bent, the angle, the initial angle. This is something you should really look into the documentation, but you really can control the type of grass to any liking at all. Let me see if I had let me have a look here, layers. I'll click this one away. I have some of the referenced symbol here, which is it's actually nice to see. I will export it again to show here what it's like. There it goes. I just like to show a little bit if you have far more geometry to render, if it doesn't stall too much, you know, if this whole setup is giving you what you need in a real life situation, because it's all too easy to just some really simplistic geometry and make it look very fast. I'm always surprised at how much you can put in a model before it slows Maxwell down. These apples here, pomegranates, are, as I said before, I think in the beginning, are from Design Connected. And the textures and the geometries is really, if you put it just like that in SketchUp, it will stall the model completely. You would hardly be able to rotate the model. But with referenced symbols or components, that's actually really easy. As you can see here, it gives a really nice rendering. It's being lit by an HDR file there. Let me see how I can show that here. It's image-based. It's a file, an HDR image file, open footage. You see in the background, it's a low resolution. I didn't want to, you know, get too much resolution in the background for this demonstration. But this really shows the ability to grow grass straight from SketchUp without having to go to Photoshop and get some images and add them to the final image. So there's quite more. There's here a volumetric button. If you click it and you, for instance, I can show it a little bit. For instance, you would like this one here over there. I will stop this. Stop. There it is. I can enable it. Volumetrics. You know, it's a new feature of Maxwell Render where you can have a volume with particles in it with a certain density to make, for instance, the interior of a church look dusty or have a lighting effect with particles in the air. And that you can do that straight from SketchUp is new, and it's also a great new feature. I haven't been working with that yet, so I will not go into that too much. And there is also a C, Maxwell C new feature, and I can enable it here. You can have your resolution set. This will produce a wavy geometry, so you don't really need to have a displacement setting or a texture with a bump map to simulate water, but you can actually generate a surface by clicking on any volume and enable it to be simulating a volume of wavy water, and here are the settings to control in what kind of way the waviness will look like. I think, well, I could talk on forever, but I don't really bore most people here with all these different settings. I think the whole webinar has already been, we're close to 9. It's a bit unstructured, but as an architect, I must honestly say that that's what happens every day. We're not IT people, we are not trainers, or we just use the whole both applications as much as we can, as good as we can. But what to wrap it up, what I really like about SketchUp and Maxwell is that it is basically very well organized. Even though the settings are complex, you are never lost anywhere. The scene manager always takes care that what you are doing is focused on a certain part of your job, and you don't have to look for environment settings, for HDR settings, in between material settings, or your camera is very straightforward. And one other nice thing is that Jeremy Hill already set all settings in a way that most people will probably use it, the way it starts up. So just to have a basic rendering, you can do that very, very easily. And only when you get a little more advanced, you probably want to experiment and get some more of the features fine-tuned to your needs. So I think I'd better bring the webinar back to you, Kevin.
Well, I do want to let everybody know that we have a lot of questions that just came in. What I'm going to try to do is, we probably can't answer all of them because of time constraints, but what I'll do is I'll contact Kirsty from Maxwell and also Francois to see if there's a way that we could put the answers in one place to get them, give them the due responses. But Francois, if you may, let's answer maybe 1 or 2, 3 questions.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm here, so I don't need to go anywhere else.
Okay. As I understand, I hope you already had dinner already, but if not, we can try to wrap this up as quickly as we can.
Well, I had dinner. It's more, maybe some others are dying to get food, so...
Okay, so let's see. Thomas wants to know, for that speed that you're doing right now for Maxwell Render, what hardware are you using to achieve the results? Are you on a single workstation?
I'm on a single workstation. This is actually a new Mac Pro. It's a 4-core, 3.7 gigahertz, and it has about, I can't guarantee this, but I'm sure it has about 12 gigabytes of RAM, random access memory. So it's actually a very basic new Mac Pro. So that's about it. I own a Mac Pro 8-core from 2008, and I would say it's about the same speed. That's an 8-core compared to a new 4-core. So the 2008 Mac Pro is about half as fast, I would imagine. But this setup is, well, as I said, a 4-core new Mac Pro. That's the answer, I think.
Cool. Cool. So I have one from Herman. Herman wants to know, do you use IES lighting or setup by lumens?
Oh, that is a question I don't really know what to do with. No
worries, no worries. Herman, I'll do is I'll try to. Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, I'm just trying to find out. Now, that depends also a little bit on the model I was showing. This last one for the where I showed the grass feature. I have to actually look what the illumination is. Illumination here is background. That is an HDR image. You can actually see the settings right here. This is not the best HDR you can buy because I see here that the intensity needs to be at 20, which means the light that comes from the HDR is weak. But if you pump it up a bit here, you can actually see me do it. Maybe if the screen refresh shows it here. Usually my HDRs are at about 1, but I think the question is actually about something else, which I can't place precisely. I can have a look here if I active. No, I'm sure he means something else. Kevin?
Yes, I think, well, Herman, I'll try to get back to you with that answer if we can. I guess we can move on to Jeremy's question. Jeremy wants to know, Francois, do you have a good resource for Maxwell for SketchUp reference components, or MXS reference components? Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, that is a bit of an issue. There are, you know, what I use mostly is Design Connected. They have really great models, but to find an MXS model, Evermotion I know of for trees has MXS prepared components. But what we usually do, we have the advantage of also working with Modo, and a lot of the models available on the market, if you are on a Mac, and if you're on a Mac, you can't use 3ds Studio. You know, you have to have some kind of format importer to get your models into Studio. Because I didn't get to show how Studio works, but Studio is a standalone application that comes with the Maxwell Render Suite, and Studio has a lot more import facilities than SketchUp. So what we usually do, we get components from all over the web and import it straight into Studio, and from there we we adjust these components to our liking and import them as reference components into SketchUp. And if we can't import in Studio, we will try to import it in either Vectorworks or into Modo or in Blender or one of those available Mac applications. But there aren't as many Maxwell components as, for instance, you will find for 3ds Max. So that's just a given. But most of those components that are available for the other packages can be converted one way or another by using other CAD applications or just straight into Studio. So we have never been able not to be able to convert a model for use in SketchUp. So and the fact that you don't have to use the actual geometry into SketchUp gives you a very wide variety of components available. In the past, before SketchUp and the plugin was developed for reference components, we were stuck to components that, you know, imported into SketchUp, and some of those, like the Evermotion trees, once imported into SketchUp were completely unusable because of the amount of geometry. The program just couldn't handle SketchUp. SketchUp couldn't handle all that geometry. But you know, once you have found your way of converting components from the web into Studio by using something like an application to convert your components. Once you're set up with that, you know, most components you will find, or symbols or whatever geometry on 3D warehouse. Once you get it into Studio, you're fine, because that is actually the major issue. But I'm really hoping that when Maxwell gets even more popular among SketchUp users, that there will be a really good library of MXS components. At this moment, as an architect, we have most of the components we really need, but because in archviz, especially for an architectural studio, you need some cars, you need trees, you need grass, some people, and so on. But you know, like furniture from Design Connected or another a model manufacturer on the web. Sometimes it seems that you need really an enormous array of symbols and components, but to be honest, that is not really true. You need a good set, and you can use those for many different kind of designs of buildings and houses and so on. So I would advise anybody who's looking for components is to really have worked out what you generally need, and keep looking for those on the web, and build your own library, and try to keep everything into a Studio and MXS format, and so that your SketchUp files are light and easy to handle. Well, that's about it, Kevin, for this question.
Okay. Well, I just have time for, unfortunately, we only have time for one more question. Francois, I think this is a really good one. Damien wants to know, what would Francois say is the main reason for using full Render Suite as opposed to just the plugin? He's getting good results from the plugin, but he's a little bit frustrated by the limit on the output resolution. Do you think it's worth it in terms of making that big of a leap?
To be honest, I haven't used the SketchUp version. I always work with the suite. But the use of, from what I know, the difference between the two is really that with the suite you have more use of plugins. The resolution is one thing that is really important, and I like network rendering, for instance. I really like to be able to use Studio because I didn't come to that yet, but in SketchUp it's a great program really, but what you can't do is handle large amounts of geometry like 50 trees, 10 cars, and half a city block. Basically it's impossible to do that in SketchUp. So what we do is we model those large projects into several SketchUp files, and we bring those into Studio, which belongs to the suite, and then we set up the combined SketchUp models in there. So and Studio can handle any amount of geometry that is usually used in archviz in a normal situation. So if you would ask me if it's worth your while to get the Studio or the Maxwell Render Suite, I certainly would recommend that. But I can imagine if you run a really small architectural office and your clients are not as demanding as a larger firm might have, you might think twice about that. But to be truly honest, I would never go back to the Maxwell for SketchUp version. Simply because for me it's too limited, and the extras it gives me in terms of the standalone part of the Maxwell Render Suite, the higher resolution and so on, the things we talked about. Once you start using Maxwell a lot, aside SketchUp, I can't imagine people sooner or later not get into the suite. I would think that the Render Suite will be your next upgrade once you do more work with it. The reason why people probably would restrict themselves to the Maxwell for SketchUp is just to have a look at it, to see how Maxwell performs for them, and if it's the right choice. But once you feel that you are comfortable with Maxwell and the way it works and the quality you get, there's a lot more to be said about that. The Maxwell Render Suite will be something you will enjoy a lot together with SketchUp. And another advantage is, of course, is that with the Render Suite, for as far as I know, you can also use a lot of other programs to render your models in Maxwell. So we own Modo. We have a license for Modo. And my colleague also works with Blender and some other packages. And the nice thing is we all render our images in the same render application, and that makes things a little bit easier. We are able to predict the outcome of a render much better if you use one single render application from several modelers than that you are also having to learn how to render in different applications. So that's one of the advantages of having the complete suite at your disposal. But having said that, I can imagine for some people it might be costly if your clients don't pay for it. That could be a reason not to expand your skills in the Render Suite. Kevin?
All right, thank you, Francois. Just let everyone know, I'm going to be working with Kirsty and Francois to get these answers back to all these questions that we had, and it's unfortunate that we have some time constraints right now. But I'm going to take over right now. Let's see. Here we go. But yeah, like I said, we're going to be working together with Kirsty to get these answers to everybody's burning questions about Maxwell. So yes. Let me jump ahead here. All right, so let me know if you guys can see the screen. I just want to wrap up, let everyone know that today's webinar recording will be posted after we're done converting it and uploading it to our channels on YouTube and Vimeo. If you guys are looking to learn more about Maxwell Render and the new plugin for SketchUp, definitely contact your sales specialist at Bob Bayer. You can reach him by his email address, bob@novedge.com. Barbara?
Yes, that was great. Thank you so much, Francois. I'm here to remind you to check our blog, especially today. We have productivity tips for Maxwell Render when used with SketchUp from the plugin developer himself. His name is Jeremy Hill, and Jeremy, in this timely blog post, gives us specific technical information on making the most of Maxwell Render when used in conjunction with SketchUp. So, you know, sign up for a blog. It will get in your mail, and you don't even have to do anything. Just open your laptop and get it every day. So next week, coming up is Modo 801. The latest release of the Foundry's award-winning 3D animation and asset creation software. Greg Brown, Modo Creative Specialist, will give us a first-hand look at all the new changes in a riveting webinar, which is also free and will last about an hour, also with the Q&A session. Head on over to www.novedge.com webinar 114 to sign up. And last but not least, today's webinar was recorded, and so if you want to rewatch it because it was so great, and if you missed something, you can go back and check it out. And you can find it on our Novedge webinar series channel through Vimeo and YouTube. And don't forget to follow our webinar series channel for the latest updates. Goodbye, everybody, and see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and also on Twitter as well. Everybody, have a good weekend. Francois, I guess any last words?
No, for me it was the first webinar, and you know, the way I look back at it, it was a really fun experience, and I hope that as an architect I've been able to get some enthusiasm going from other architects to render their SketchUp models. So that would be really great, and I would also love to have a look at the questions. I haven't been able to do that right now.
Yeah.
But I can see there are a lot, and you know, that is interesting to see that.
Cool. Yeah. So I'll be sure to forward that to you.
Yes, absolutely. Do that.
All right, everyone. Have a good one.